Okay, so what is injection? And we're going to be exploring this question through an example. And this example is going to be a webhook functionality within a Node application. And here we're just going to be leveraging a GET request for simplicity, not a post. And yes, this is a very oversimplified kind of example. Webhook functionality in apps are a lot more complex, but this kind of elucidates the point. So we are taking some input from the user, right? A user-defined URL. We are spawning a child process, and that process is going to allow us to basically invoke a curl command with the user-defined URL. And then we go ahead and that curl command is invoked, and we go ahead and we're just going to mock the response through a console.log, right? So going back to our question, okay, what is injection? So injection is basically inducing data with malicious intent. And this data could include unexpected commands that the program executes, right? So think about it. What malicious data could be injected into user-defined URL? Just think about it for a second, pause the video, and then I'm going to go ahead and continue. So let's do an assignment, okay? And the assignment is, let's go ahead and kill the node process by entering data into user-defined URL. Okay, so think about something that you can inject into there that'll kill the process. And assume that the commands are being executed within a bash shell. All right, so give it a shot and see if you can go ahead and kill it, right? And also, as always, the environment setup questions or the setup instructions are right here, and here's the command to run. Okay, and if you try struggling with it, but I'm going to go ahead and proceed with a hint. So once again, think about the execution context here that we're focusing on, all right? And here it's going to be the Linux shell and what delimits shell commands. Because if you know that delimiter, then you might be able to inject something, right? So keep trying. And if not, try that delimiter plus a pkill command and do some research on pkill and kind of what that expects, kind of the arguments to it. All right, so basically, let's go for the answer here. And I'm going to pull that up. And so I'm right here. And let's go ahead. I'm going to comment out the code that we previously leveraged. And I'm going to uncomment basically the pkill statement here. So here's the delimiter, right? And because the application is allowing us to basically pass in that delimiter, we can pass in whatever command we want, and this will be run in basically the shell context here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this file, and that will automatically allow the Node application to rerun. So we go for it, and then boom, right? So it was our process was killed. So and that's the point. This is a very simple, but at the same time it elucidates a powerful point. If the application allows delimiters, there can be some big problems. Okay, so let's do some takeaways here. All right, input is fed into an execution context. All right, so and also which has a unique syntax that's tied to it. Right, and right here we basically have the semicolon. Okay, and just to even go back and harp on the point even more, if delimiters are allowed, injection can be very easy, right? Now, just think about it. So if input ever comes from an outside entity, just don't trust it, right? And we'll get into this more into future episodes, but that's the big part to why this injection occurs is because there's an implicit trust, right? And the other thing is that a lot of developers, and myself included, when I started, would think about injection as it just directly coming from the user, say, as a part of the request response cycle. Now, or as a part of the request within the request response cycle. But just remember that this could be user input that is being persisted that has already been persisted into the database and that you are then fetching in, right? So that is needs to be correctly sanitized and just basically validated as well. So in effect, okay, don't trust anything. But we'll look into some examples of this into the future of really what I mean here. So okay, so getting back kind of to the point, what other ways can the shell context be exploited? Okay, think about really the execution environment that this is being run in, and what other things could you put into user-defined URL to get some privileged information? Okay, so think about this, right? What's if you're echoing out an environment secret, right? There's that happens a lot, so it can get very, very, very bad very quickly. And the other point to really consider is we're going to be looking at semantic and syntactic injection as we go further. And this is an example of syntactic injection. And syntactic injection is really exploiting the syntax of a given execution context, all right, which in Bash, this syntax right here is the semicolon that is delimiting basically these statements. So syntactic injection. And here we go. Evaluating execution context. And that's really what has your coding and thinking about injection risk within your web application. It's really thinking about, okay, so we have some user-defined input that's coming in. And what are all the execution contexts that that input is being run in? Okay, so let's think about it. All right, so right here, what are all the execution contexts that are in play? So we know the shell, right? But also curl, right? Because this is being passed into basically a curl command. And also JavaScript, right? Because this whole process, the node process runs within a JavaScript environment. Okay, so it's always true for node applications. So that's the point is to really consider all these execution contexts for this given input that's coming in, because all these execution contexts, right, have can have basically unique syntax that can be exploited, right? All right. So come join me in the next steps.